What does it mean to say that a car made an impact? No, not a literal impact. I mean a car that genuinely captured the public's imagination, influenced the industry, or perhaps was personally meaningful to you. Road tripping the 60s, 11 cars that made an impact, is today's topic here on Hubcap Club. Let's start in 1960, the pivotal transition year between the atomic age and the space age. Most American cars that year were mild restyles of the 59s. Chrysler Corporation cars still sported outlandish fins, causing some to joke, suddenly it's 1957, referencing Plymouth's suddenly it's 1960 advertising from a few years prior. The biggest splash of the 1960 model year was the introduction of 3 new compact cars: the rear-engined, air-cooled Chevy Corvette and the more conventional Ford Falcon and Valiant by Chrysler, the first compacts from the big 3 car makers. Well, I'm going in a different direction for my first pick. I often seem to pick the cars that weren't successful when new. My 1960 choice is arguably the most modern-looking full-size car of the year, the 1960 Ford. This car truly previewed a crucial styling trend that other cars would adopt and adapt the following year and beyond. First, there's the important change back to a gently curved windshield. This replaced the extreme wraparound windshields with A-pillars that were either vertical or had a troublesome rearward slant. You had to be careful when entering or exiting these older cars, or you might bump your knee on the A-pillar. Not so with the new Ford. As Tennessee Ernie Ford says in a commercial for the 1960 Ford,
"No more knee knocking. Let me show you. The windshield post slants forward like it should."
The last time Ford A-pillars slanted forward was in 1954, so I guess it took Ford 6 years to figure that out. Here's a 1959 Ford for comparison. This 1960 Galaxy represented a new design language for Ford, featuring bladed front fender tips that gently sweep downward and inward as they extend forward and frame the grille. The hood slanted downward as well, vastly improving front visibility. The shape of the inset grille is reminiscent of the Ford logo itself. Both the grille and hood dip slightly between the headlights. The beltline is outlined in chrome from front to back, leading the way to tiny horizontal fins that form a trough on the trunk lid. Not my favorite feature of this car. One interesting touch, though, are the subtle depressions in the rear bumper that mirror the shape of the half-oval taillights. I don't know if Ford stylist Elwood Engel had a role in designing the 1960 Ford, but the chrome-outlined beltline and bladed fenders are exactly what we'll see on next year's Lincoln Continental, a car design he helmed. You can also see this influence on cars he designed after joining Chrysler, like the 1964 Imperial and 1965 Chrysler. Even over at GM, the 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado owes something to this groundbreaking design. Oh, and the Studebaker Avanti as well. The Starliner two-door hardtop with its rakish roofline is a stunningly attractive car, a design more appreciated today than when it was new. Back in the fall of 1959, the public really didn't warm up to this car, and it was a sales flop. There's much more to this story. I intend these brief automobile vignettes as auditions for longer episodes. If you'd like a more complete story about the 1960 Ford or any other cars I'm featuring today, head to the comments. Let's move on to 1961, where the all-new Lincoln Continental heralded the dawn of the new frontier. This car has been recognized as one of the most graceful and tasteful American automobile designs of all time. It's famously adapted from Elwood Engel's rejected design for the 1961 Ford Thunderbird. As had been the case since 1958, both the Lincoln and T-Bird were unibody cars built at the same plant in Wixom, Michigan. The Continental styling was elegant and restrained, slab-sided with minimal chrome trim. Both front and rear doors open from the center, something not seen on a Lincoln since 1951. The Continental was surprisingly compact for a luxury car, measuring 10 inches shorter than a 1961 Cadillac DeVille, and a whopping 15 inches shorter than the 1960 Continental. The convertible version was the first true four-door drop-top from Detroit in 20 years. The 1961 Continental is a true classic, even if it wasn't a serious challenger to Cadillac's dominance in the luxury segment. Many of its styling elements were copied by other cars. It was even the basis for a new presidential limousine, which was assembled at the Wixom plant in January 1961 and customized by Hess and Eisenhart in Cincinnati, Ohio. That limousine was the car in which JFK was assassinated on November 22, 1963. Ford introduced the compact Falcon in 1960, and it was a huge success. Turns out a lot of people wanted a smaller car that was cheaper, more fuel efficient, and still accommodated 6 adults in relative comfort. The Falcon was about 1.5 feet shorter than the full-size Ford. For 1962, Ford management decided to bridge that gulf with an intermediate-sized car, the new Ford Fairlane. The Fairlane name had previously been used for full-size Fords. The 1962 Ford Fairlane rode on a 115.5-inch wheelbase with an overall length of 197.6 inches, about 10 inches shorter than a 62 Ford Galaxy. While the 62 Fairlane was considerably smaller than a 62 Galaxy, its dimensions were almost identical to a 52 Ford. That just shows how much larger so-called full-size cars had grown in just 10 years. The styling for the 1962 Fairlane was attractive enough, but frankly, it was pretty bland and inoffensive. This car made an impact because of its packaging, not its optics. And most American cars would continue to grow in size well into the 70s. Fast forward another 10 years to 1972, and Ford Intermediates were nearly as big as its 1962 full-size cars. As they say, everything is relative. Let's take a break from Ford and head over to GM for an easy pick. The 1963 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray was the first full restyle of the Corvette since its introduction in 1953. And it wasn't just the styling that was new. This was the first Corvette with independent rear suspension, and it was the first offered with a fixed roof. And not only was this the first Corvette with hidden headlights, it was the first American production car with this feature since the 1942 DeSoto. The Stingray split-window coupe really knocked me out as a third grader back in the fall of '62. A centerline roof crease extends from the windshield to the back of the car, splitting the backlight in two. The split window only lasted one model year, as it negatively affected rear-view visibility. The boat-tail rear end was reminiscent of the old 1930s Auburn Speedster. Bill Mitchell would explore this look on a much larger car in the 1971 Buick Riviera, but I think it looks much better on the smaller Corvette. The theme is also repeated on a smaller scale on the hood. The convertible Stingray got a lot of free publicity from the TV show Route 66. To me, the car was the real star of the show. But if those dudes were drifters, how did they afford a new Vette every year? The Corvette Stingray was one of my 2 favorite cars back then. Equal, but not superior in my estimation, to the incomparable Jaguar XKE. To me, the Avanti is one of those timeless designs that still looks modern today. A few months ago, I attended a country club wedding reception and an Avanti was parked outside. It drew me like a moth to a flame. Of course, I had to have my picture taken with it. I'm not sure if this one is a 63 or 64. Most 64s have square headlight bezels, but not all. I prefer the round. I've heard they switched to square because of difficulties cutting perfect round holes in the fiberglass without cracking the material. You've probably heard this story. New young president of Studebaker, Sherwood Egbert, was hired to shut down car production. But Sherwood loved cars, so instead, he greenlighted a Hawk GT restyle and a new luxury sports car to be built with a fiberglass body on a Lark convertible chassis. Superstar industrial designer Raymond Loewy completed some sketches, then assembled a small 4-person design team. They traveled to sunny Palm Springs, California, where the team holed up in a small 2-story building where they could eat, sleep, design, and build a quarter-scale model in just a few weeks. Coke bottle curves, a pinched waist, a hidden front grille, the car was stunning, and buyer interest was high. but production delays, quality control issues, and uncertainty about the future of Studebaker meant the Avanti was not a sales success. Just like with the GT Hawk, Avanti production tragically ended when the South Bend plant was shut down in December 1963. Even so, its rakish styling had an influence on automobile design for decades to come. But wait, there's more! Two ex-Studebaker dealers refused to let the Avanti die. In 1965, they launched the Avanti II, a limited production, custom-built version of the original car, but with Corvette power. But that's a story for another time. There is no question that an All Things Avanti episode is in my, and hopefully your future. Stay tuned. The Ford Mustang was introduced in April 1964. All Mustangs produced in '64 were actually titled as 65 models, but informally, the cars built before August 1964 are called 1964 and a half models. That's why I slotted this in for a brief mention as the 11th car. The sporty, short-deck, long-hood Mustang was probably the most influential car of the 1960s. With a base price of around $2,400, it was a sporty car that many young people could actually afford. The Mustang was very customizable, offering a wide range of performance, appearance, and comfort options. Initially, the car was available as a two-door hardtop or convertible. In August 1964, the iconic 2+2 fastback body style was introduced. Mustang surpassed all expectations by selling 1 million units in its first 18 months of production. It spawned many competitors, all known as pony cars in honor of the Mustang, the OG pony. The 63 and 64 Riviera are both gorgeous cars that previewed GM styling trends for the rest of the decade, but the 65 took it to another level. The headlamps were hidden behind elegant clamshell doors in the leading edges of each fender, where the parking lamps used to be. The fake air scoop trim was removed from the sides. The rear end was cleaned up by integrating the taillights into the bumper. The interior was lavish and a very comfortable place for both driver and passengers. I know because my best friend had one and we had many adventures in that car. It had belonged to his grandfather, but Jeff gave it 70s street cred by installing mag wheels, air shocks, thrush mufflers, and a cassette deck in the glove box. And guess what? He still has it today, restored back to its original condition. This photo was taken just last week. My old friend Jeff Paddock is now a city councilman in my hometown, Fort Wayne, Indiana, where he loves to bring his Riviera to neighborhood get-togethers for his constituents to enjoy. The 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado was the first front-wheel drive American car since the 1937 Cord. So, was it a subcompact car like the British Mini? No, it was a large, full-size, personal luxury car. The unusual Toronado powertrain packaged a rocket V8 and turbo-hydromatic transmission into an engine bay no larger than other full-size rear-drive cars. Although the Toronado seemed to be the answer to a question no one had asked, it was pretty startling in the mid-60s to see a car interior with a completely flat floor. The fastback fuselage styling was certainly unique, if not universally loved. I like the front end the best. Even though the horizontally bladed grille doesn't wrap around a coffin-shaped nose, it still seems like a nod to the Cord, as do the hidden headlights. The Toronado wasn't a big seller, although it did win the 1966 Motor Trend Car of the Year award. In 1967, Cadillac would borrow the front drive setup for its new Eldorado coupe. Ever since the full-size Nash and Hudson were discontinued after the 1957 model year, American Motors had stayed in its lane. Smaller yet roomy, sensible, economical cars for practical people. They were in sharp contrast to cars from the Big Three, which seemed to get longer, lower, wider, and heavier with each passing year. But the automobile landscape changed dramatically in the 1960s. GM, Ford, and Chrysler threatened AMC's market share by introducing a wide range of new compact and mid-size cars that competed directly with Ramblers. So American Motors decided to trade on its reputation of building reliable, economical cars by transforming AMC into a company that competed directly with Ford and Chevy. It committed to building a full lineup of cars: compact, intermediate, sporty, and full size. The 1967 Ambassador was only about 4 inches longer than the 66, but the new styling looked much longer, with up-to-date lines as stylish as any of its competitors. It was a bold move, and AMC kept releasing new cars at a rapid pace. The Javelin and AMX pony cars in 1968, and the compact Hornet and Gremlin in 1970. The same year, AMC diversified even further by acquiring Jeep from the Kaiser Corporation. I loved the 1968 Mopar Intermediates when they hit the scene. The curvy Coke bottle styling was obviously GM influenced, but still had a quirky Mopar feel. Chrysler Corp wasn't lacking mid-size muscle in its stable. They had the Plymouth GTX, Dodge Super Bee, and Charger. But the Roadrunner was something new, a budget-friendly muscle car with a big personality. Sure, you could cram a 426 Hemi into a stripper Belvedere if you wanted to hide your light under a bushel, but the Roadrunner badge on the door let other street racers know you meant business. Plymouth paid Warner Brothers to license the likeness of the speedy Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote on cars and in advertising, and they even made the horn sound like the cartoon character's famous meep meep. The Roadrunner came standard with a 4-barrel 383, but if you had the bucks, you could step up to a 440 or even the fire-breathing Hemi. This is one of the few 60s cars where the pillared coupe and hardtop both look just as good, and it could definitely outrun that hapless Coyote. When introduced for the 1962 model year, the Pontiac Grand Prix was a sporty personal luxury car based on the same platform as other Pontiac full-size cars. But for 1969, the Grand Prix was all new and on its own unique platform for the first time. That only lasted a single year, as it would have to share that platform with the Chevy Monte Carlo for 1970 and beyond. The 69 Grand Prix took the short deck, long hood design aesthetic to an almost cartoonish extreme. It may not have been efficient packaging, but it sure looked good, with its combo of elegance, performance, and classic styling themes in a mid-size package that was distinctly Pontiac. It was the middle manager's muscle car. On the inside, the Grand Prix featured a command seat wraparound cockpit-style instrument panel that angled most controls and gauges toward the driver and within easy reach. It's a cool layout, but with too much plastic to look completely premium. Pontiac played off the luxury performance image of 30s Duesenbergs by dubbing the standard and premium versions Model J and Model SJ, just like the classic doozies. The Grand Prix was very successful and remained so well into the 1970s. And like the Mustang, it created its own market segment, the mid-size, mid-priced, high-performance, personal, near-luxury car. There would be a lot of competition in this segment in the 70s, but over the years, the emphasis focused more on luxury and less on performance. I hope you enjoyed this brief road trip through the swinging 60s. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. That's how you can help this channel grow. If you're feeling generous, support me with super thanks. And leave a comment. I read them all, and I'd love to hear which 1960s car you think had the biggest impact. And as always, I would appreciate your suggestions for future topics. For Hubcap Club, I'm Rob.